While the principles and operation of the AIR system are quite sophisticated, its service requirements have been kept to a minimum, as all of the major components are serviced as complete assemblies. On the pump, for example, the pulley and impeller are the only parts that can be replaced separately. The pump itself is serviced only as a complete unit. The pulley, of course, bolts to the pump hub, while the plastic impeller is a press fit on the shaft. If it becomes necessary to replace the impeller, break the remains of the old unit off the pump hub with a screwdriver. Then install the replacement impeller by using the pulley as a press tool. Tighten each of the pulley attaching screws a few turns at a time until the impeller is fully seated on the hub. But a word of caution, and it's embossed right on the pump housing. Don't put the pump in a vise. The housing is aluminum and could easily be distorted. For the same reason, don't drop it or hit it sharply, as the pump has close tolerances and requires absolute concentricity for quiet operation. Speaking of noise, during new car conditioning, some pumps may chirp or squeal slightly. This is not cause for pump replacement, as the impeller and the phenolic vanes are purposely designed slightly oversized so that they will wear into an exact fit after about 20 miles of driving. Like the pump, the diverter valve assembly is serviced as a unit, but its silencer can be replaced separately. The air delivery hose, air injection manifold, check valve, and the manifold attaching parts and gaskets, of course, are all serviced separately. Since the ducts and jets are drilled in the cylinder heads, no parts are involved. Unlike the PCV, the air injection reactor has no periodic service requirements, but precise engine tuning, particularly carburetor adjustments, is essential to meet the emission limits. Accordingly, all Cadillac carburetors are now given a 100% flow check and calibration at the factory to assure the most precise fuel metering possible over the entire operating range. This test proves that the carburetor's cruising and power circuits now meet the most critical limits possible. But precise idle mixture adjustment is something that can only be done on the car after it has been delivered to the area where it will be driven. While idle speed and mixture are critically adjusted at the factory, differences in altitude affect adjustment. So for the smoothest possible idle and the least possible emissions, idle speed and mixture must always be tailored to the local conditions before the car is delivered to the owner. The idle speed and mixture adjustments have been revised for 1968. With the engine thoroughly warmed up and the air cleaner removed, the idle speed will be set to 550 RPM in drive range with the automatic climate control turned off. Preliminary steps are the same as for previous models and include disconnecting and plugging the vacuum advance hose at the distributor, as well as the vacuum release hose at the parking brake inside the car with the parking brake securely applied. For precise idle adjustment, engine timing must be exact, so check that the dwell angle is 30 degrees and the spark timing is 5 degrees before top center. To start the idle adjustment, with the idle speed screw set for 550 RPM in drive, turn one idle mixture needle until the highest tachometer reading is obtained. Then, tighten the needle to lean out the mixture until idle speed falls off by 20 RPM. From this point, back off exactly 1 1/2 turns to enrich the mixture. Repeat this adjustment on the other mixture needle. If the idle speed has changed, reset it to 550 RPM and readjust the mixture, again finding the lean speed fall-off point, then adjusting each mixture needle 1 1/2 turns rich. One other change this year is the relocation of the hot idle compensator valve. Always check that this valve is closed by depressing the pin on top of the bowl cover. If the engine slows down, then the compensator valve should be held closed during the mixture adjustment. At the time of delivery, the purpose and general function of the two emission control systems installed on the 1968 Cadillac should be reviewed with the owner, with particular emphasis on the importance of their service requirements. As covered in the owner's manual and protection plan booklet, The emission systems should be first rechecked after the car has been driven 4 months or 6,000 miles, at the same time as the first engine oil change. This emission control check is new for 1968 and is essential to meet the exhaust emission limits that are now federal law. Essentially, the new emission control check consists of the same engine tune-up procedure specified in the new car pre-delivery schedule. A recheck of distributor dwell angle and spark timing, plus readjustment of the carburetor idle speed and mixture settings. While making these adjustments, check that the PCV valve has not become stuck or clogged by disconnecting and shaking it. If the valve rattles, and if the engine slows down about 30 or 40 RPM when the end of the valve is covered, then the PCV valve is operating normally. This valve should be replaced every 12 months or 12,000 miles, and its hoses and fittings cleaned as part of the new annual tune-up recommendation. With the now standard closed PCV system, the crankcase breather also requires periodic service. To prevent the filter from becoming clogged, the breather should be thoroughly cleaned in mineral spirits along with every oil change, that is, every 4 months or 6,000 miles. Other services performed at the time of the new emission system check include checking and adjusting the tension of all drive belts. Since new belts stretch slightly with use, some tensioning readjustment may be necessary on a new car. Belt tension should also be checked at the same intervals as oil filter replacement. To maintain the two emission systems in top working order, their only other service requirement is a complete engine tune-up annually or every 12,000 miles. Thorough engine tune-ups performed to Cadillac's critical service standards have always been essential to maintain the smoothness and quiet, powerful response built into Cadillac engines. Follow these procedures on every new car as well as every tune-up to assure the greatest possible customer satisfaction and the lowest possible emissions. You'll find the important tune-up specifications conveniently listed on a special label under the hood of every 1968 Cadillac as a reminder that proper adjustment and maintenance are required. For as we have seen, Cadillac's air injection reactor and positive crankcase ventilation system substantially reduce the car's total emissions. But for these devices to be completely effective, regularly scheduled service and careful attention to critical engine adjustments are extremely important.